I'm Joe Conrad.
Joe, my pleasure. I'm Ron.
And I'm Dean Lind.
I think there might be a story here. From there I contacted Joe. We exchanged some emails, and he told me about his story as well as Dean's, his partner, and kind of what they've gone through the last 25 years. So got up to speed with that, and put that in the broader context of next year being the 30th anniversary of AIDS, and got thinking about that, and the story of the AIDS is these two gentlemen, I mean, who basically lived the entire life of the disease. So they've lived the science, they've lived the stigma, they've lived the abandonment, and overcome it all to still be around to to tell the story. So I think it's a pretty powerful narrative. At least two gentlemen and all the things they've overcome in the last 25 years, and then especially to go through most of this alone, and only in the last 6 years finding each other through the disease and their efforts to advocate and educate. So that's the story that we're trying to tell.
Well, we were both supposed to be gone in 1991. We were supposed to have been dead then, and we survived that. And then I was supposed to be gone again in '95, and I held on long enough for the introduction of the cocktail therapy regimen, so we could throw more drugs at it than just one, or experimental drugs. And so we were lucky enough to hang on till 1996, where we could access the medications, and that's made all the difference in the world for us. And that's allowed us then to start experiencing aging issues, gray hair, bifocals,
Whole nother
arthritis, aches and pains, that sort of thing. And then, I think the biggest rite to passage for both of us after turning 50 was getting our ARP card in the mail. Who'd have thought? What we look for these days are things that bring us life. There's so many things around us that just suck the life out of you, and when you deal with this on a day-to-day basis, first thing we do when we get up in the morning, you look in the mirror and you see HIV. I was asked by a kid in a presentation one time. We've spoken to thousands of kids, and one girl, little girl, grade school kid, asked me, if you had one wish, what would it be? And I was like, I've never been stumped, and now by a kid. And I was like, this is such a great question, and so I had to think about it and think on my toes. And so I said, you know what, I have an answer for you. And I said, I would love to know what it's like to wake up in the morning and look in the mirror and not be HIV positive, because I don't remember what that feels like.
Right.
Do you?
No. Or not see it in your face when you look in the mirror. That's the big thing.
You haven't had that reality in many years.
We haven't had that reality in almost 30 years. Yeah. And so it's, you have to look for the things that bring you life instead of wallowing in the things that take it away.
Yeah.
And you just really have to be able to prioritize, and you have to accept what your limits are, and know that, I'm not 30 years old anymore. I'm not 25 anymore. And you just really, really, really have to be introspective and
well, and you have to appreciate what you've been given, and the time that you have. My 15-year-old niece was killed in a car accident about 5 years ago. And I remember that one of the first things I told my sister was, it should have been me. I was the one that was supposed to die. If I could take her place, I would trade places with her in a second without a thought. So every day to me is a gift. You wake up and I wasn't supposed to be here for the last 15-20 years. So everything, every time I spend the day with my mom, with the family, it's every moment that Joe and I spend together is a gift.
Yeah, true.
It's all about, we came home to be with our mothers. There's nothing like the love of a mother to make, and this is the biggest scab, this is the biggest bruise, this is the biggest painful thing that you'll ever experience. And your parents are sitting in the back going, I don't know what to do.
Can't do anything.
There's nothing I can do about this except love you and accept you and support you. And we're both here because of our love of our mothers.
Well,
and our families.
That's very true. One of the, when people ask me, how do you keep going, And the first thought that always comes to my mind is, it would kill my mom if I died.
Part of the problem with the virus is, and we do this when we do education, is, you know, there are people who think I can still do whatever I want to do because if I become HIV positive, there's medications that can treat it. Well, theoretically, some people will argue against this, but I firmly believe that the virus is changeable and will figure out a way to work around the medications, and therefore people need to interchange their medications. And sometimes you'll burn through a whole class of medications because the medications attack the virus in different ways. And so over time, people will become immune to the effects of the medications, or they might have another health condition that would require them to remove that medication because there's a conflict in it. So we're well ahead of where we were many, many years ago, but we still have problems with, you know, people, you have to take the medication the way it's dosed, otherwise you can build up an intolerance to it. So, you know, you've got to have a discipline. That's the one thing about being HIV positive and having AIDS, is if you've never had a discipline in your life, you must find one, and you must incorporate it daily.
You have to be proactive in it. You know, you can't take your meds for 2 months and then say, you know, I'm just sick of taking meds. I'm tired of taking handfuls of pills, and stop for, you know, I'm going to take a month off, because your body will build up an immunity and, you know, a tolerance to that medication. And you don't just lose that drug, you lose that entire classification of drugs that you can no longer take.
Wow.
And again, with the funding for medications that are, you know, that's going on, that's why we have waiting lists for the AIDS Drug Assistance Program, because once you put someone on that program and get them taking the meds, you have to ensure that your program can afford to keep them on those meds.